You're very welcome to Confident Women Ireland's YouTube channel with me, Roisin the Chleirigh. I'm delighted to welcome my guest, Cathy O'Reilly from Cathy O'Reilly Coaching, based in Clonmel in County Tipperary. Cathy's background is in business, where Cathy had a very successful hairdressing saloon in Clonmel in County Tipperary for 35 years. When Cathy was in her 40s, she went back to study life coaching and mentoring, psychotherapy, personal development, and add another string to Cathy O'Reilly's bow. Cathy also studied family consultations and generational healing. Cathy says in all her training, she would say, my life's experience is what meets my clients' needs. Cathy O'Reilly, you are so very, very welcome to Confident Women Ireland's YouTube channel.
Thank you very much, Roisin, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Well, Cathy, as I said in off air and in the intro, I was watching you on TikTok, and I thought, oh my God, I really, as a coach myself, when you're watching other coaches and you resonate with it, everything they're saying, and also, as we said off air, with the integrity of you working to your personal and professional values, and to you working with, Joe Dispenza always says about connecting and the alignment between the heart and the mind and the values in the spoken word. And that resonated with me watching your YouTube, your TikToks. But Cathy, you're a great storyteller as well. And that's what I really found, and the beautiful tone of voice, but importantly, the messages in your TikTok messages that you post. So one of them was, in particular, what we get you to talk about, and then we'll talk about then a bit about your career in the outro, is I was watching one of your videos on shame one morning, and the morning before that, I was having a conversation with a friend about shame, and they confided something in me, and I kept saying, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I can sense there's something wrong, and this has gone on for about a year, and then they all of a sudden just confided in me. We're driving in the car, and I said, "You have to let go of that. You have to let go of that shame. It's sabotaging your life, and etc." The next morning, as if confirmation, your TikTok video on shame. So talk to me and the audience and the viewers about shame.
Well, I think that shame comes in many, many, many different guises. And the thing about shame is that it's the secrecy of shame. This is what makes it, I think, so damaging and so, I suppose, toxic. It does, because it's the secrecy around shame. And I work with lots of clients, and I would like to say that, like, family constellations is really where I left my shame behind. And I would say that, I can honestly say, really, with my hand on my heart, that every client that I have met, we always go back to the very beginning of their lives. And that's where we start, because that's where the story started. And shame starts at a very, very early stage in your life, whether it be through school, maybe the family of origin. It could be around, living in a home of a bit of chaos, living in an environment that you walk out the door and you put on the smile and put on the mask and you leave it all behind you. But it's still with you and it stays with you all day. And life goes on and you become successful. Maybe some people don't, some people do. But when they come to me, usually when we start at the very, very beginning of their lives, we'll find little pockets of shame, I call them. They're little pockets. And they start to wear them, and they wear them so well that they no longer recognize it as being a problem. They just are habitually living in that space. So I suppose, without sounding overly vague about it, once we, and as I said to you earlier on, Roisin, when I work with my clients, the first thing I do in my contract as a coach and as a therapist with my client is I always say, if I see it, can I say it?
I like that.
They say yes, because they've been so long trying to unravel what holds them back, keeps them in a stuck place, relationships that aren't working. I work with couples as well. They come to me and they kind of say, look, if you see it and and you can certainly say it, they're just relieved to find somebody's open to looking at it like that. And we unravel it bit by bit, bit by bit. And once they see it, they can actually say, gosh, I never thought of it like that. So you're now beginning to, I suppose, reframe and, kind of rewire and reframe the way you're thinking about a certain thing. And a lot of it comes from the beginning of your life where shame started to build. So shame comes in many, 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 many different colors.
And it's once you acknowledge something, you said in your TikTok, it's acknowledging it, it's naming it. And and that was something, and the lightness of calling it out. And I remember saying to my friend, how do you feel after you just telling me this? Oh my God, I feel lightness. And that's exactly that.
Yeah.
And shame, is it societal? Is it a societal guilt that people keep, that shame and that silence? Talk to me about the silence of shame.
Well, I think that when you meet people, we forget that behind those eyes, as they say, what's going on behind those eyes? We're well able to walk out and put on the mask of survival, smile through it, and play the game, as I often call it. But it's the shame, it's the secrecy of shame can start from your school years. As I said, a lot, particularly for my age group, like when we were much younger, at that time, school was a difficult time for some children, and they were put against the wall, faced in, it's different now, of course. Yeah. But shame can start from so many places. And the secrecy of shame, I suppose, is, how would I describe it? People, as I said, it's very hard to talk about what happens in a coaching practice with your clients because each person has such a different story. They have their own way of sharing it. They have their own way of explaining it in the room, and they have their own way of understanding it. So it's such a big subject. I suppose, could we narrow it down to the secrecy? Yeah, for example, I was working with a client very recently, and we spoke about I left school very, very young, so my shame would really be around my primary education, and you walk out and you get on with it and you do your training and you appear successful in life, but I would have had a terrible hang up about leaving school young. And this client of mine, literally couldn't believe it. She was a woman in her late 60s. She said, I can't believe this is coming up because that's exactly what I've lived with my whole life. About if somebody mentioned the word education or leaving cert, I would go beetroot and I just say, oh, please change the subject, talk about something else. Now you might say, that's not a big deal, but to the person that's carrying the shame, it's a huge thing. Yes. So shame, as I said earlier on, and secrecy of shame can be as light as that, but it can be as hard as it is for that person that carries it.
True, and it's that burden of that can cause anxiety. Shame can anxiety, and that's where you have to really let go of the shame, because if you don't let go of the shame, that anxiety is going to build up and build up and build up, and it can then become self-sabotaging technique. Of
course. And it's such an unhealthy way to be in the world, really. And we don't do it intentionally. No. We are not aware that we're doing it. But, when we come into being mothers and mothers of children, now suddenly this can often appear. It can raise its ugly head, because as I often say to people, in life, we try to self-regulate. We try to respond well instead of reacting badly. And if we carry shame, we can be quite reactive, because you're carrying this burden of, I'm not good enough. So, you're going out looking for a bit of fight in the world. But in actual fact, the world can be beautiful and peaceful and joyful if you do the personal work, the work of personal development, and that self-awareness piece and the forgiveness piece and the letting go and understanding why things happen. There's a lot of education in it, and it's wonderful when it starts to unfold.
Do you think, and I'm just putting it out there, that a lot of societal culture can actually put shame, the feeling and the emotion of shame and the thoughts and belief of shame onto people?
I think it's unavoidable, to be honest about it. And I think you mentioned earlier on, we just had a brief chat earlier on before we started, and we were talking about our age. Now, you're younger than I am, but it takes years to become a human. I think it takes so long. You know what I mean? You can go through 6 decades, like, I mean, 60 years. Some people come to me and they're 60 before they start their own personal development work. So it's absolutely, it's impossible to get through life without gathering up lots of little bits of not being good enough. It's just that when you do the work, and the earlier you do it, I mean, you started like me in our 40s, that's when women generally start to do that little bit of self-exam. They do a little bit of self-reflection, and they start asking questions. Maybe it's hormonal. There's other things in life that make you start thinking a little bit more deeply. But once you do that sort of work and you take the weight off your shoulders and you start to look at life, then you can start leaving that go. But it's unavoidable. I don't think you can get through life without gathering lots of little pockets of shame, as I call them.
In one of your videos, and I thought this was a great analogy, you said that someone once said to you, shame is like a coat on our backs and everyone can see it.
That's right.
That was really powerful.
It was. And actually, when she said it to me, would you believe it? It was my mother-in-law. I mean,
Right.
now she'd be 100. But I mean, she said to me years ago, she was talking actually about what shame looks like, And I suppose it does describe it because we carry it and people can see it, and it makes us vulnerable. Because if people can see that in you, you're an easy target. So it's about building your confidence, finding your feet, your voice that you've lost. And in shame, we lose our voice. It's easier to stay quiet, say nothing, keep small, hide a little, I mean, for example, I was working with a beautiful client the other day, and she's so capable. She's actually got really great leadership, I would say, qualities. And she wants to start something, but she would like to have a front of house person where she can do all the work in the background. And of course, her own personal life in her childhood would have been safer to be not seen. So when we looked at this, and this is the work we're at the moment, myself and this particular client, beautiful woman, it's what do you do with the child that was safer not being seen in the home of chaos, that now she's a leader, a strong leader, but she hides behind somebody else that will take the glory, if you want to call it that, maybe ego, of standing out in the front when she's going to do all the heavy lifting and the hard work. So for me, my role in the room with her is to say, where did it start? Why are you feeling it? Can we leave it go? You're no longer unsafe now. Do you know? And that's shame. That's shame. That's shame in its essence for her today. And we'll work on that. And I promise you, she will be front of house. She deserves to be there because she is a leader in every other aspect of her life, but she doesn't want to be seen.
And that can also go back, not to be seen, it's not acknowledging your own recognition in your work and not allowing other people the gift of recognizing the work that you do and what you have created and the work that you put into everything, that recognition.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that I know that, like, we when you've trained and I've trained and we've done a lot of training, we're talking about the ego and bust the ego and the ego isn't good. Look, you have to have a little bit of ego to be ambitious enough to get on in life, to want to move forward. There's nothing wrong with it if it's done in a positive way, And as I said, that ego, meeting shame, it's a tough game for the two to merge, So that's the role, really, I think, of a good coach mentor, is to unravel the beauty and exquisiteness of the person that has been hidden behind the shame that they carry from their childhood. And as I said earlier on, with family constellations, and I've done the training in that, there's generational shame, there's generational shame, and people bring it to their children without them realizing it. They're doing their best, but they haven't done their work, And it's the greatest gift you can give yourself, really, is to do that piece of awareness and personal development and becoming the human that you're meant to be.
Can you tell the viewers who might not know, what is family constellation? What is it?
Constellations, it's a beautiful piece of work. I suppose I'd like to start off by saying that when I started my coaching training, I mean, really, it was sort of, as I said to you the last day, it was I tipped my toe in the water for the first time in my life. I cried a lot. I remember when we were doing our training in coaching, you know, we were running out the door and we were all crying a lot because there was stuff coming up for us. We were like, Jesus, like, what's happened to us here? It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But it was the beginning of me learning about me, really. When I finished my training with Alba Harrington, who now owns Inspire Coaching, she's a wonderful trainer. And I recommend some people to come to me that would like to do some, like we'll say, corporate coaching, to be trained by Alba. She was wonderful. I went on to do, psychotherapy because I wanted to go deeper. So I did that for a couple of years. Then I did my training in Gestalt and personal development. But my last training was in family constellations, which is generational healing. And the way it works really is about the space. It's a hard one to really explain. You'd nearly want to go in and do a little bit of research if anybody out there is listening to it and they haven't heard of it or they'd like to look at it and, you know, find out more about it. It's about looking at your family of origin, and not just your family of origin, but your family of origin of origin. So now we're going back further again, and we're trying to understand how we have become who we are through the people, our people, who we are through them. Because, you know, I'll give you an example. My mother came from a family of business, small businesses that time. You know, they made a business out of nothing, but they were business people and they survived on being, you know, kind of making their own living in their own way. My father came from a farming background. So when they merged as a couple, they would have been different backgrounds, even though one was, you know, sort of from a rural area, one was from a little bit more, you know, from town. So their marriage and their connection was what was the beginning of our lives and our experience. So I suppose, and maybe I'm being a bit vague, but it's about who were they then and what did they bring to the table before we even met them. So that's generational healing, and that's constellation work. It's fabulous work, like it's wonderful. And I would say that, like, when I did my training in family constellations and all the trainings I'd done, it was the one that really lifted the lid off fully. I mean, it brought me to a place where, as they say, I'm shaken, but I'm never stirred. You know, it was just, it really was the last piece that I needed for me to become who I am.
You just reminded me, I heard something the other day, and possibly it could have been you, and it said, when you heal yourself and you do the personal development and heal yourself and get to know yourself, forgive yourself, and really heal, you're healing the generations of your ancestors. And therefore you can heal, you can stop that generation of issues going forward into the new generation.
But Roisin, there's a lot of honesty in that, and there's a lot of, I suppose, courage.
Yeah,
there's courage in it because, you know, again, like when you're doing this work, you've got to be courageous. You know, you have to be courageous with yourself, be real and authentic and honest, and that then is the end of shame, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. There never was in the first place. You know, and you can actually tell your story. You said earlier on that I'm a good storyteller. I'm very honest about my own personal life, and anyone that would listen knows that I don't hold back, because it's such a relief to say, this is who I am, this is what it was like, this is where I came from, this is what I've become. And that is making life so much easier for the people around me, for them to be real too. The more secretive you are and the more you hold back of yourself, you live in a place where everybody is walking on eggshells. It's a sad place to live, and it doesn't have to be like that.
And shame is a belief, isn't it? It's a thought, it's a belief and an emotion and an action.
It is. It is.
So if we can change the mindset of the action of whatever the shame is around, we can change that emotion, change the actions going forward of what happened. As you said, acknowledge it, name it, shaming the shame. I like that one.
Yeah, well, that's what I call it. Like, shame it and bring it out. Say, like, what have you been doing to me, shame? Where have you left me in my life? How have I been hiding for so long? What am I ashamed of? I'm human. I have human experiences, you know. I put it this way, when people come to me, and I always like to work from the very beginning, right back to I always go to the childhood. I always go to the parents. I want to know what it was like to be a child in their home. And when people come to me and they say, I had a wonderful childhood, absolutely idyllic, I always kind of say, look, we'll give permission for now for you to stay there because that's safe. But as we go along, we like to look at, it's not that we're trying to find things that were wrong, but we need to look at those things that were uncomfortable, because those are the things that you would have been carrying at the very early stage that became much bigger than they needed to be, you know. And when they leave them go and they start to drop them and leave them down, there is a lot more, as you said, lightness. There's a lot more joy in life, and there's an awful lot more to be celebrated. The celebration of who you are, really, without that baggage.
There's something powerful, isn't there, in celebrating who you are?
100%, 100%, yeah.
And it brings me down to, also, I was thinking just while you were talking there about, you also mentioned, and it's very powerful what you mentioned in one of your TikTok videos, and you said that you can also take on other people's shame.
You do.
And people can also put their shame on you as well, on anyone.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about about taking on other people's shame? Because that's very powerful.
It is. I suppose my experience of it sometimes, well, not sometimes, we'll call it always, is that in the family of origin, you know, you're living in the family system, you know, and like all systems, it has its way of working. And when you're in the family system, if one person is stepping out of line and being, you know, kind of difficult to rear, a child that has become, maybe there's a mental illness, maybe there's a pregnancy that has been kept a secret. There are many, many, many things that happen in a family of origin. And, you know, we could name hundreds. But the family carry it. It's not just the person that's gone through it, it's the family that carry the shame of that. And there they start. That's where they start from. Don't tell anybody about this now. This has to be kept to ourselves. And the child learns to keep it quiet. And that's the beginning of holding pieces of toxic shame. Now, it's not that as a parent, you know, I can understand how people try to protect the family in the system. But I suppose it's about the compassion. I go to supervision, and I'm sure you do too, you know. I go to supervision, I have to go when I do my work, as you do. And I was with my supervisor the other morning. We looked at trauma. Now, this is an interesting point I'm going to bring up. I think it's something that really struck me. And we were talking about Gabor Mate's wonderful work on trauma. And the thing is that, like, it's not so much the event, it's what happens before the event and after the event. So if the child or the situation or the story is well supported beforehand and well supported afterwards, then the trauma can be managed very well. But if the environment is dysfunctional or chaotic before the event, and then it is disgraced or shamed after the event, then the child or the family will be in turmoil. So it's a very strong point, isn't it? Isn't that a powerful piece there?
Yeah. The support before the trauma and the support after the event, the trauma.
Yes.
And how that then stays with the trauma, the shame, the guilt, and how do we cope with this?
Yes.
And that then will bring the silence into it, that will bring the shame of the trauma.
Yes. And like, if we'll say the relationship between the parents is, you know, they've got a good relationship, which may not always be the case, and there is a harmonious enough, all families have their ups and downs, but there's a reasonably harmonious environment, then that will be held well for the person that's involved in this toxic piece. So I think that's, again, another piece of how shame starts in a family system.
Yeah. Because I was talking to someone many, many years ago, and they said something happened in their home.
Yes.
And there was shame around it.
Mm.
And so their mother kept telling everything. Oh, don't believe what Jane says. You never believe a word she says. She's got a great imagination.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So she said then that she never told people. She always thought nobody would believe anything she said anyway.
Yeah.
And that was covering up and silencing the shame.
100%. 100%. That's a beautiful example, actually, of how it starts. And it can be even more subtle than that, you know? I mean, I met a beautiful client this week, and she's a gorgeous woman. She's beautiful. She's got a fabulous career. She hasn't met anybody. She'd love to meet somebody. She's in her 50s, very, very fit woman, mad into exercise and hiking and walking and all kinds of marathons and everything. And she said, as they say at home, you know, there isn't a man made for me. He wasn't born yet. And I said, is that what you say to yourself? Is that your internal dialogue? And we actually, you know, because when I do the work with my clients, as I'm sure you do, my job in the room really is to hold the piece. And I mean, we cut that piece and I said, let's talk about this. Is your internal dialogue that the man wasn't born yet for you? And then she said, and they used to always say, the mother of the man wasn't born yet. I said, is that your internal dialogue? That you believe the man wasn't born yet, that is born, that was made for you then? So it's about what we tell ourselves.
Yes.
Even though it starts out as a joke, actually, but it can be ingrained and it becomes, I suppose, it goes into our cellular body. We feel it, that's it then. I mean, there's nobody going to suit me and I'm not going to suit anybody. So how subtle that is, but how much it meant that she brought it into the room to me.
And then that becomes a chemical biological reaction within the body at the cellular level. And that emotion around that. So every man that she sees, oh, the man of my dreams is not born yet.
That's right. That's right.
So she's that's self-sabotaging any wonderful relationship that could be a bud and blossom.
That's right. That's 100%.
Trust. There's a trust there as well. She shouldn't trust any of the men because the man in her own internal dialogue and self-talk, he's not born yet.
Yeah. And it was very strong now. You know what I mean? It was a
Yeah.
very strong internal dialogue. I mean, you know, and when she said it, and again, you know, going back about working with clients, you know, as a coach, stroke mentor, stroke therapist, you know, you're always watching for the body. How is the body sharing that story? Now, I mean, she could have said it in a different manner, but the way she said it was quite animated. So for me, I picked up that this was a big story, bigger than she realized.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the work that you do with your client, isn't it? Like in the room.
And there's the consequences of what we tell ourselves and our internal dialogue and what we allow other people to dump onto us.
Yes.
And then in our own internal dialogue and our own emotional reaction within the body to what people are telling us of how we should behave and what they think we should think. And that internal dialogue goes through the whole nervous system at a cellular level into the emotions of the stomach.
Absolutely. That's an interesting one. Now, I'd like to just look at that for a minute because, you know, the book, The Body Holds the Score. I'm sure you've heard of that book. I've written, you know, his name is hard to remember, so I wrote it down this morning because it's a brilliant book. Basil van der Kark is his name. Anyway, it's a great book, The Body Holds the Score. So when I do some work with my clients on, say, a little bit of anxiety, now I would say that my work, and I said this recently, I work with people primarily as a coach. But sometimes we look at what happens to the body when we're stressed, anxious, walking on eggshells, holding our voice back, wearing the mask, you know, not having our power, not standing into our real lives. And, you know, it's about where do you feel it in the body? And this is an interesting one because for me, I know that I would always feel any kind of anxiety, or I always feel it in my solar plexus, you know, that bit under the breastbone is where I feel it just kicks off for me. Some people feel it in their shoulders. Some people feel it in their throat. So it's about recognizing what's happening in the body before you go into the fight or flight. What is happening to the body? Because the body will hold everything. It'll give you every bit of information you ever need about yourself. You'll actually get it from the body. So then we learn to the precious pause, and we learn to respond instead of react. And this is the work that we do. How do we learn to respond well instead of react out of a place of insecurity because of our shames? It's all connected, you know. And to stay with the body and to know, why am I feeling this? You walk into a room and the atmosphere is thick, and there's an atmosphere of, you know, everybody's playing, as I often call it, the dishonest harmony game. We're all pretending to get on here now.
Yeah.
But you know that they're not. It could be the family of origin, it could be your in-laws, it could be wherever it is. And when you walk
In the
into
workplace, it could be in the workplace, a friendship.
oh yes, absolutely, in the workplace. But your body is sending you the signal to sit up, be alert. This is scary. You're not safe. So it'll start triggering like butterflies in the stomach, feeling a little bit nauseous, can't eat my dinner, don't feel well. So the body is holding it. But now what do you do with it is the next thing. And that's the work.
You said something really interesting, because something happened to me the other day. I was driving somewhere, and it's due with my one of my children.
Okay.
And you know how you talk about that emotional reaction within the body?
Yeah.
And in the pit of my stomach, just dropped, right? I had a thought.
Yes.
And I went, okay, this is in my stomach. And in that moment, I said, this is the womb. This is coming from the womb.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, but if this comes from my womb, you know, and this thought came into my head. And it's funny how we're having this conversation.
Yes.
Okay, well, if my belly button is connected to my mother's belly button, the womb and the umbilical cord, and my grandmother and my grandmother and grandmothers before that, and my children, and I'm thinking, I had this thought, and I went, that emotion is coming from the womb because that is to do with my children.
100%.
That was powerful.
Yeah. But your body it wasn't your body speaking to you, it had a voice that day. It had a voice of its own, you see. It had.
And then once I realized this driving, I just sent love to my two children.
Yeah.
And I sent love to me as a parent. I said, everything's going to be okay. You know, everything will work out. It's the love, that connection between mother and child and baby and grown up adult children. That's where, as we say, that's very powerful about where do we feel that emotion in the body. And that is powerful. And you can heal it. And in that instant, I healed that situation. I healed that thought. Or what that behavior, or what could of how I was going to feel while driving that journey, and what possibly could have happened when I arrived at my destination.
Yes.
And the whole outcomes. And so I changed the perception, I changed my thoughts, I changed my emotional, chemical, biological reaction to ensure when I arrived there that I didn't have these motherly worries and anxiety, and I wouldn't pass it on then for that event. And that is so powerful, Cathy, what you said about that too. Because there's consequences, isn't there? And as you mentioned also, which I thought was good, the consequences of speaking up with shame, okay? And also, some people are habitually, I can't say that word, are habitually negative.
Yes.
Habitual.
Some people are habitually negative.
Habitually.
And you will find actually, and I mean, this is something again that would be generational. You know, it is something you'll see in families where people, they like to play into the lower energy mood, that lower level of energy. And the thing about it is that I've been around people like this. They can elevate their mood when it's a sort of a thing that it's a way of being in the world. I think it's just a way of being, you know, that they can live in this lower level of energy, and they can pop out of it every now and then go back again to that place where they live in this low level of energy. And I think that sometimes, and I'm speaking, I suppose, more from experience now at this stage than training. It's a generational thing. You would often find that there would be a very critical parent, a critical mother maybe in that family, where people are told, pipe down there now and don't be getting carried away with yourself. You're a bit too happy today, you know. So they learn to be in that, it's a safe place again. And only when they do the work do they say, you don't need to be like that. You can be happy all the time. You can be in good form, or you can see joy in everything. You don't need to be in a space where you're being kept down in a place of habitually negative. Because, I mean, all these things are habitual. I mean, you can make up your mind in the morning. Whatever happens today, at least I'm up and I'm moving and I'm on the go. And that's enough just for now, for today.
Yes.
Or you can wake up in the morning and find thousands of things to be negative about. It's habitual. So how do you see the world is really can often become something that is just a habit that needs to be broken.
The habit turns into behavior. I can't say that word. It's my speech impediment.
It is
Habitual. But
yeah.
it's also, it is a frequency, it's a vibration, it's an energy.
It is an energy.
It's like a Wi-Fi
We
system.
are a ball of energy. We are a ball of energy. And we can go up and we can go down. And this is now, you know, the way we've spoken before about mood sweepers. And they come into a room. These are the people that are habitually, they can't, you see, it's a controlling kind of behavior too, because particularly, I think it starts with the parents, you know, it's a controlling thing with the kids, you know, that like, you know, I'm in bad form if you don't do what you're told, or I'm in bad form anyway, even if you do what you're told, but I'll stay in bad form to keep you where you are. You know, it's a sort of a way of being. But then they become the mood sweepers. They walk into a room and they wipe the place of energy that is good. So I think for all of us, we have to be aware of where we're putting ourselves and the people we're surrounding ourselves with. It's a gift. I often say to my clients, your energy is a gift. It's a beautiful, special, magical gift. Mind it and protect it. And don't let somebody burst your bubble. You know, why would you? And we do find ourselves at times in places where we get our bubble burst, whether it be in our job, in the office, with the people we work with. And it happens, people come into me and they're surrounded by people that they find negative. It's about how do you then grit it out to the max and say, you ain't getting to me. This is my world today. You know, It's all of that.
And it's also too, it's understanding how our mindset works, our thoughts, every word in our language and vocabulary has a frequency and vibration and energy. And every word that we use, every word, when you think about every word that I'm speaking to you right now, has a biological frequency, energy, and chemical reaction within the body and out of the body. And I always think it's like every word has power. Every small word, every tone of your voice has a word. But even more important, the intention behind the words that we use. And as you say, habitual. How do I say it's a habit and it's a behavior.
It's a habit. It's a behavior. And, you know, it's just, again, you see, I suppose it's not that I'm trying to promote coaching or mentoring or therapy. I'm honestly not here this morning to do that. But I think that we're both sharing enough that anybody that will listen to this will definitely get a lot from it. And, you know, even to go on to you, there are so many things you can learn from yourself. If you don't want to go and spend money and time and, you know, give yourself the gift of coaching, therapy, mentoring, you want to go and do your own personal work. There are so many ways of doing it. But to really look a little deeper, you will find an awful lot of answers there. But you have to do the work. It does take the work. It does. And it can sometimes, and I'll be honest about it, it sometimes can bring you to a place of a little bit of pain. Of course it can. Because, you know, you can actually go back and know you're allowing yourself to feel the little bit of pain that you shoved down and you weren't allowed to express. Now you can actually feel the pain. And that can be a bit of a journey in itself. But
you're not numbing it. When you feel it, you're not numbing it.
Yes.
And you're getting yourself out of that numbness.
Yes.
Of avoiding going there, because that numbness can be more toxic than not, as you say, acknowledging it and shaming the shame. That's so important. Is when you feel it, you can feel it, then let it go.
Yes. Absolutely, 100%. And bit by bit, it feels so good that there is, as I often say to people, there's no going back now. There's no going back. I mean, once you know, you can never unknow again. And that's the beauty of this work, really.
Yeah. And two, I think, and it's the work that I do and what you do, you get people to connect to themselves, connect to their intuition, connect to their values. And when you're connected to your values and your intuition, you're connected to your mindset, you're connected to your body, and you're connected to everything that you're doing from your intention. I always say when you're connected to your mindset, you're connected to your intuition, you're connected to your intention and the purpose of everything that you do, and that energy, that frequency. And it's where you can say, okay, your intuition is your navigation tool. It's that little lantern that you carry through the bad days or the challenges in life. And that's what I really, when I watch your TikToks, I really get that sense of that connection with you, that you bring your clients and anyone you're talking to, you bring them back to themselves, understanding who they are, common sense.
Common sense. And I suppose the thing about it is that, and it just came up for me there as you were speaking, is that when you go down the road of working with people, I mean, it's a responsible job. You're in the room with people that are coming to you and they're looking into your face and they're hoping that you will solve. I can't solve anybody's problems really, but I can certainly help them I can guide them along and I can buddy up with them and be with them on the journey of them becoming themselves for the first time sometimes in their lives. But as a coach and as a really, I would consider as a genuinely interested person in other people, you must walk, talk, and speak the truth. If you are working with clients in any capacity and you are faking it, they'll know very, very quickly. Your client is going to see that really fast. And the chances of you seeing them again are pretty limited because people can see whether you really are genuine and real or you're faking it. They'll know. It's the intuitive part of us, and we all have that, that we know. So if you're doing the work or you're thinking about going into doing a coaching program or doing therapy in any way, you have to do it wholeheartedly.
And you have to also be ready mentally, emotionally, and physically to actually say, okay, I'm committing to myself
100%.
in doing this. No matter what comes up,
Yes.
I'm committed, and I know I've got the right person to navigate me through this. And I think that's really important. And as a coach, as a coach or a mentor, you a therapist, you are there to guide them. That is, as you said earlier, so much responsibility and a privilege and an honor.
Privilege. It's a huge privilege to be in the room with somebody, because the thing about with this work, somebody walks into me that I've never met before in my life, ever, and within the first 10 minutes, I know them. I know more about them than they probably have shared ever with anybody else. What a privilege that is. What a privilege that is. That they feel safe and that they know it's a confidential space and that it is absolutely in this room, left here in this room. And it's there to be examined, thrown up into the ether and see what comes down. It's wonderful.
And Cathy, it's self-regulation is what you talk about as well. And
Yes.
and there's another thing, and I've always said this, like sisters in this one, your greatest asset is yourself.
100%. Yeah.
And people don't realize that. They haven't got that realization awareness that we are our greatest asset.
And we don't come alone, you see.
No.
We don't come alone. I mean, look, again, there's your mother, your father, your aunts, your uncles, there's your generations. They're all there behind you all the time. And when we look outside of ourselves for external validation, life can become so difficult. It's always challenging. It's always uncertain. And when we do the work and we really stay with who we are, knowing that all of that stuff is there too behind us. They've been there before us and they've made the way for us. They've set the seed for us to grow, and we grow into ourselves. You become kind of fearless, really.
Yes.
There's a fearlessness that comes with it.
Because the fearlessness there is when you are connected to yourself, when you're connected to your intuition, your values, and you're connected to your intention. That self-confidence comes from that and to the mindset, and then through the biological chemical reaction in the body, that no matter what, because you are clear in why you're doing what you're doing or why you're saying what you're saying. You have that clear, concise clarity.
Yes, yes, yeah. And also, you know, we do things around boundaries and we do boundary statements as well, you know. And I mean, I suppose this is another thing that I think is important. When we get a lot of clarity about our lives, we say less with more meaning behind it. When we're insecure, we talk ourselves into a puddle. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when we're really self-aware and we know our path, journey, and we align with our values, we say things it's a one-liner. It doesn't have to be explained and over-explained, because you know it's true for you. And when you meet somebody that is apologetic and they're trying to explain, they're trying to tell you, and you're listening, a lot of the time they're just not sure that it's going to go well with you. But when they're sure of themselves, you'll find people, particularly people in leadership, they don't explain an awful lot. They just know, and they tell you that.
And the intuition
comes out of coaching.
There's a silence in that.
There is. There's a power in that. There's a power in that.
Yeah, there's a silence in self-confidence. There's a silence of intuition and values and mindset and behaviors. So you've got I always explain it, you've got your intuition, you have your intention and purpose and values, you have your mindset, you have your heart connection to all that, and then you have your internal dialogue, you have your self-talk, and you have the emotional reaction to the chemical biological reaction to every word, and the intention, when that's all connected to even the tone of your voice, this tempo of your voice, and then the habits and behaviors, the actions, and then the outcomes. But when you are connected and have that self-awareness and self-confidence, that silence in the intuition, it's like you can be in a crowded nightclub.
Absolutely.
But there's silence in that.
There is.
And quietness.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Roisin. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And when you get to that place, I'll give you an example of this now. A client of mine, beautiful client of mine, she was separated from her husband, and she found it very difficult to be around other women. So she spent a lot of time actually really going to these places and feeling she didn't fit in. She didn't fit in. And, she always felt that like she was, women feel as if they're a threat to other women when they're separated. If she'd gone through an awful lot of this, again, feeling insecure and what have you, Anyway, the work we did around this, and it was something that I felt really worked for her. I said, before you go there, before you go to this place, because she was going to this place every week, it was their gathering, before you go, make your mind up before you go that you are going to be alone, that you are going to stay within yourself. You will take it all in, you will listen and observe and absorb the atmosphere, and you will be fine. And you prepare yourself before you go that that's the way it's going to be. And I tell you, it worked, because I know that it was an experience of my own, actually, at one time, that I had to make my mind up before I left. A little bit of social anxiety at the time. I decided before I went in there that I will be alone in this place, even though the room would be full of people, and I will be lockjawed when it comes to what to say next, because I wouldn't be the best in crowds. I'm actually much, much better here today with you in one-to-ones. But that was my intention before I went in. And I promise you, it changed so much in my life that day, because like you just said, you can be in a crowded room and be so content just being there. You don't need to be one of everything and one of everybody.
And that is about being in the present moment.
It is. It
with
is.
yourself.
It is.
And that alignment.
It is. And it is a beautiful thing to find it. It really is.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to, I think, like that. And it was a beautiful thing for me to find your videos on TikTok.
Oh,
Because we all have days where, you know, oh, this or that. And sometimes I just go on and I on TikTok and I just go on and I look at it and I look at your videos and I go, okay, that's perfect message. And I go on because I came off social media for a couple of weeks and then okay, I'm ready now. You know, it's like I'm back, and it's about, and it's finding people like I did with you on TikTok. Oh my God, Cathy, she's amazing. And I was always curious. I said, oh, she's either had a fashion boutique. This is how she either has a fashion boutique, she was either or a beauty salon or a hairdresser. Well, I got one out of three.
Yeah, well, we did, and we still do actually. We own a company called O'Reilly Hair and Beauty Supplies. We have a shop in Arnold Street in Clonmel, and we have one in Waterford as well. And you know, it's lovely. And like, we have two sons. Our oldest son went down the professional route, and he's off there with his wife and his two kids. And our younger son is now in the business, so it's lovely. It still continues. I don't work as a hairdresser. I sold my property. I finished my career as a hairdresser a long time ago now, really. But it served me well, and I had a fabulous life in it. And actually, a lot of the work that I would have done as regard to being okay with meeting strangers and building relationships stood to me in the work that I do now. You know, I don't get hung up. You know, when they meet me, it's like as if they've met well, I feel I'm meeting a friend. You know, and I'm lucky that I'm lucky. It has stood to me. But yeah, we still have the hair and beauty supplies business, and we've got a wonderful website, and that's their business, and they love it. My husband and my son, they work together. So
lovely.
Yeah.
Well, it's no wonder you went down the route of coaching, mentoring, psychotherapy, because we all say our hairdressers are our therapists, and you've been listening and
It's changed a lot, but yeah, it's a lovely environment, you see, because it is like hairdressing salon is like a little community.
Yes.
For me, it was anyway, because I suppose I was so long in it. Young stylists won't have the same relationship, needless to say, with their clients. But as you get older, you get married and you have your own children, and you're now looking after your elderly parent, which is all part of the life that we've had to be in. You know, you're sharing that with your clients, and the relationship is deeper as you get older, you know. Yeah.
And I think there's something wonderful in reaching over 55. I think there's
it's a special time.
It's something to be celebrated. It's something where women and men, that you come into your own, and you know, you let go of all the baggage and the coats, how many coats you wear on your back. You let go of it all, and you go, you know what? It's you come more into reality and common sense.
You do. And I suppose, look, I'm just a huge fan. I mean, look, I'm absolutely blown away by Martha Stewart. I think she's amazing. She's 84 years old, Martha Stewart. And she has reinvented herself so many times. And I think that is an inspiration for any woman to reinvent. You have to reinvent. You know, you can't look into the mirror and see there's a youthful part of all of us that, I mean, as somebody said, like, you know, I'm 66 now, I'll be 67 in July. But like, there's a part of me still feels 30, you know. And when I tell people my age and they're not shocked by it, I'm kind of thinking, Jesus, like, why aren't they shocked? Because I don't feel my age, you know. But I think it's about reinventing and reinventing and changing yourself. It's so important. It's so important. Martha Stewart is an example of it. I think she's amazing. And Martha Stewart said, it's only all a good thing.
I think it's a survival skill too. And it's also the ability of knowing yourself and respecting yourself in reinventing yourself. And sometimes too, you know, you go down the road, you go, okay, I've done that. I want to try something different. And because you're being navigated down a different road. Just like you were for hairdressing, you were probably everybody's therapist in your hairdressing salon, and then you took it a step further, and look what you're doing now.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, really, I will share with you that I was very, very, very good at my job as a hairdresser. I was now, and I'm very proud to say that I was. We owned a hairdressing academy and everything. I trained half the country. And I loved it so much. I thought, when this is gone, what will I do? I'll never find something that will mean as much. But I can honestly say with my hand to my heart, that this has just been so much more rewarding. It's absolutely a wonderful career, coaching. I can't praise it enough. If you're the right candidate for it, it's beautiful work.
Well, Cathy O'Reilly, I cannot wait to talk to you again and have you on Confident Women Island. I can't wait to watch your next post tomorrow. What you put up. You put up a lovely one about the weekend. And I thought that was lovely, about we're coming into the long weekend. And so I would like to thank you for your wonderful upbeat and common sense and full of wisdom, knowledge, and experience into your TikTok platform and videos. So thank you for that.
And thank you very much, Roisin, for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it. And, it's lovely to talk to somebody that gets the work, because it's just the two of us have been chatting about what we do, really. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much.
It's what we love.
What we love.
And it's like somebody said to me, I was at a media event, because I have YouTube channels, and I was at a big event doing YouTube Live, and somebody said, "Oh, you're very ambitious." She was young, and I thought, when you get to my age, it's not about ambition, it's about doing what you love.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
And everybody just looked up at me. And I was shocked that everybody just looked up at me, and I thought, well, I gave an honest answer, at my age, I'm not looking to be the top or a multimillionaire or top CEO. I'm just doing it because I love it and I believe in what I'm doing, and that is more powerful than anything else. I think is doing what you love and being in a time and space in your life where you can do what you love.
Yes, exactly. What an opportunity. And wholehearted, I suppose. The word wholehearted comes to me a lot, because if you give everything you have and you go at it in a wholehearted way, everybody will know that it's true.
They feel it before they feel it, even before they're driving to you or before they're meeting you. They can feel that energy, that vitality, the energy and the frequency, even before they meet you. Cathy O'Reilly, how can people get in touch with you? You're on TikTok. What's the website?
I use the platforms, and I'll be honest about it again. If coaches out there looking for, to build their clientele or build their business, I use the platforms because I enjoy that, and I like it, and I go at it again wholeheartedly. So I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I use all three of the platforms. And after that, like once you go into that, you'll see all my details, my numbers there, and my email address. And I do actually work with companies, and I do, sort of hour-long public speaking. I do things on the Lifeline. It's another little area that I work in.
Well, I'll put all your links to your socials and your website into the description box below.
Very much.
Cathy O'Reilly, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Roisin. And have a lovely weekend.
I will indeed. I'm going to have a lovely weekend, and you have a lovely weekend. The sun is behind you there, coming through the window, so it looks beautiful.
And I'll talk to you again soon.
Cathy O'Reilly of Cathy O'Reilly Coaching, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Confident Women Island today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.